Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken, and we are back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. Today, we're going to be talking with Sid Banerjee, who is the Chief Strategy Officer over at Medallia. And Medallia is famous for what they do, which is gathering data about customers and creating actionable insights based on that data. So that's what we're going to talk about. This is really important. You need to know what your customers think and what they're doing as a result of the experience that they're having with you. And if there's a way to improve it, by golly, we need to do it. Now, before we get into the interview, quick announcement. If you've got a story about an amazing customer service experience that you want to share, or you have a question that you'd like me to answer, just reach out to me on any of the social channels. I am pretty much everywhere. If it is a question, use the hashtag #AskShep, and I will answer it right there in the social channel, maybe on this show or maybe in my newsletter, which is the Shepherd Letter. And you can subscribe free of charge to the Shepherd Letter by going to Hyken.com. That's my website, HYKEN.com, and just filling out the form, and you will get that delivered to you every week. And it's got great information, and it's a lot of fun. All right, let's get into our interview with Sid. Sid, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here, Shep.
Well, I'm excited for two reasons. Number one, I get to see you today, and I know everybody else is listening, but I get to see you. And number two, I get to see you, I guess, in just over a month. And by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be just a few weeks. But I get to participate in the Medallia experience in Las Vegas, which is coming up.
Yeah, we'll see you in March, hanging out at the Wynn. Very fun.
Yeah, what a nice place too. And I've got to ask, you've been doing this for a long time, and you started Clarabridge about, 20 years ago?
Yes.
And I've had the honor to work with that organization as well. But give us a quick little background on yourself and as we lead into what you're currently doing with Medallia.
Happy to do that. So the quick career history is after working in the kind of business intelligence space in the late 90s and early 2000s. In 2005 and 6, basically, I founded a company called Clarabridge. We were focused on trying to connect up a lot of the customer experience, feedback and conversation and online, basically media that often were being used by companies to better understand what made a good product, a good service, a happy customer. That led into the creation of Clarabridge, which we ran from 2006 to about 2021. In 2021, just after we kind of cleared the hurdle of about 100 million in revenue, we were growing both here in the US as well as overseas. We were acquired. I went to work for my acquirer, the company that acquired us, is a company called Qualtrics, for about just shy of 3 years. Took a gap year, as the kids call it nowadays, last year, and starting in the late fall and into the winter, became aware of an opportunity to kind of step back into the business here at Medallia, and ultimately joined Medallia just a few weeks ago in January of 2025.
Wow. So Medallia and Clarabridge and even Qualtrics, there's a lot of commonality in that you're grabbing data and doing something with the data, which I want to get into in just a moment. But first, I need to know, what did you do in the gap year? Did you take off, go skiing, go over to Australia, bungee jump, climb a mountain in Switzerland? What did you do?
Well, you're not far off. I did have a bucket list of things I wanted to do if I had some time off. They included skiing in the Alps, skiing in Montana, going on a safari in Africa. Took my family for that one. Doing a lot of just mountain biking and road biking, and just trying to get out and about and see places around the country and around the world that have been kind of on my list. I went to Southeast Asia, spent a week each in Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia. Went down to check out wallabies and random marsupials in Tasmania. And I really just got a lot of travel out of my system, and I loved it. And I did a lot of thinking and a lot of just trying to kind of decompress from what at that point had been a 20-year career of building and running a company.
Well, you built the company, you ran it, you sold it, which means you probably did okay. Yet you decided, I still need a job. And
yeah,
you became the chief strategy officer of Medallia.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey when you realize you've had a fantastic career, but then realizing that there's still a lot going on in this world, particularly the world that I'd kind of built businesses in, which is customer experience, that I was excited to lean back in on. The advent of the chat GPT large language model ecosystem, which really came out in 2022, has really upended a lot of the ways people think about customer experiences. The continued cloudification of a lot of the core technologies that power customer experiences, and the ability to kind of connect them and make sense of them and use them to basically make companies better and make customers more, more satisfied. There's just a lot of innovation going on. And I was intrigued by Medallia in particular, having at its disposal this very, very rich ecosystem of signals, right? Communications and conversational signals that sort of drive how companies understand customers. And was excited about the opportunity to work with the company to kind of layer on and transform a lot of the core capabilities with this new technology that's only a couple of years old right now. And
I
it's
know.
really changing the way people think about technology.
Right. I think from the standpoint of generative AI and ChatGPT type technologies, you're right. Just the past 2.5 years, it seems to have made its mark, and it's become so reasonably priced that almost any company can afford to implement some type of generative AI technology or AI. I remember, and I mentioned this many times on the show over the past few years, way back, maybe 12 years ago, 2014, 12, 14, somewhere around there. I'm going to these IBM conferences where they're talking about Watson and AI, and the cost to do what we do today was hundreds of thousands,
Yes.
not hundreds, which is what in some cases is all it costs.
No, the cost curve has been massively bent over the last 4 or 5 years, I think, and what is now possible would have taken millions, if not tens of millions of dollars, and a lot more time to build and innovate. And we can now literally be super agile. The other thing that's really interesting about this space is if you are a company, which Medallia is, that has access to data, data that our customers work with us to give us so that they can improve customer experiences, and you layer on this new innovative technology, you basically turbocharge what you can do. And I think that's an opportunity to just really drive transformation in this business and with our customers.
And that actually is a perfect lead in to the question I wanted to ask first, which is traditional data came from surveying customers, hoping that if you sent them some email or some type of correspondence, they would give you an answer back that would give you insights. And today, some people I've interviewed and talked to say you don't even need to do that anymore. I'm not so sure that's accurate or not. I want to get your take on that. But the point is, we can, through, for lack of a better term, listening to customer conversations, not specifically the customer, but overall in general, we get sentiment, we get ideas, suggestions. We know what's creating friction. We know what makes people upset. We know what gets people excited. And then, and we're going to talk about the wrangling, which, by the way, I love the technical term, the wrangling of that information and the activation of the information. I want to get to that in a few minutes. But first, take us like from old school to new school with, surveys being emailed versus, or any type of survey you're taking versus what's new today.
Yeah, no, I think there's a very kind of straight line, or a kind of a line from where surveys started in the CX world to kind of where we are today. If you go back 20 years ago, surveys were the dominant way of collecting feedback, and it was a time when surveys were the first real kind of feedback mechanism to go online in a big way. A lot of the other channels you might use were either not available or not easily accessible because they were not digital, right? Think CRMs were on-prem, and social media and even the web were much less pervasive than they are today. But today, most programs and most CX programs and most organizations are pretty mature. They've already been running surveys for many years. They've generated the kind of transformational impact of listening and analyzing the customer feedback that you ask for. But you also have a generational shift, right? I like to make fun of the kids. My kids, literally my kids, my two sons, do not fill out surveys. They're in their 20s, right? They tend to be online. They tend to communicate on social media. They are happy to have a chat conversation with someone, but they are not going to actually fill out a response for feedback afterwards. It's important to capture people where they are and to basically tease out what they're saying based on the in-the-moment conversation that's often occurring that is that's not often captured in a short form response a couple of hours or a couple of days later. The other thing is that if you think about, you and me doing business with any organization, we might call a company, we might walk into a store, we might be online, and for every time that we're doing that, maybe 2 or 3 or 5% of the time we'll fill out a survey, right? So there's a far greater amount of data and a far deeper amount of insight if we can make sense of all those other signals, the digital signals, the conversational signals, et cetera. So what we're really doing today in CX is actually capturing all those signals. We have products that collect that data. We have partners that we can kind of share data with, and then we analyze it. We apply algorithms to tease out the meaning, the intent, the emotion, the effort, the topics, the kinds of things that are actually going on based on applying AI to all of this information. And we can anonymize it so that it doesn't necessarily violate any kind of privacy or security issues, but still use it to determine what can I do to make a better product? What can I do to shorten, the effort or the time it takes to actually get something done? And how can I drive continuous improvement by being competitive, being innovative, and being responsive to my customer needs? That's where the ROI is today, and that's really where the technology is kind of deploying to drive real impact.
Wow. Are you saying that the traditional survey that we're used to receiving, even via email, is dead? Because we're halfway through the day, I've already received 2 from different companies that I've done business with, a hotel, and I see.
So I have an acronym that I like to use. It's SANE, which is that surveys are not enough. Okay, and what I mean by that is surveys have a role. They can be very useful when you are looking to explicitly ask a question that may not naturally occur in an everyday customer experience. So they're very useful for market research. They're very useful for tracking feedback from a group of people that might not otherwise interact with you. But for customer experience, I think surveys are absolutely not enough. In order to really understand the holistic, totality of the customer experience, you need to kind of pick up all of the signals. Like I say, the digital, the conversational, the chat, even sort of the inferential signals that come from just people doing things when they are in a business environment. And that's where I think you can really pick up the kinds of markers that help you drive improvement and help you drive awareness of what's ultimately driving loyalty and what's costing you or sacrificing in efficiency.
Yeah, it's amazing the stats and facts that we found in our annual research. We asked, how often do you complete the customer satisfaction surveys that you're sent? And 16% said rarely or almost never. 38, which is about 40% or so, 4 out of 10 said sometimes. And then you get about 36% that are either often or always, saying that, okay, about a third or so of your customers are likely to do the survey. And my guess is those are the ones that absolutely love you, or they hate you and you want to hear about it.
Well, and not to diminish even that data, but that data is skewed by the people who fill out surveys answering that survey. Right?
Exactly.
If you look at the full number of people, including the people that would never even respond to that survey, what we've seen empirically when we go into large organizations in healthcare, survey response rates after an experience are less than 5%. Okay. In travel and hospitality, they're higher. They're about 15% because people like to brag about or complain about a really good or bad stay. But in other industries, like I say, healthcare, banking, you're typically in the low single digits. So it's just not a sufficient signal to really truly understand what's going on in detail. And if you are of a mind to want to close the loop, right? If someone has a cry for help, you want to respond, you're not going to get sufficient signal to actually close the loop with just surveys anymore.
All right. Well, I love the SANE acronym. Surveys are not enough. And you've just given us some insight to that. Let's take a short break. When we come back, I do want to talk about the having, the wrangling, and the activation of the data and making sense and using it. We'll be right back. We're talking with Sid Banerjee, the Chief Strategy Officer of Medallia. And don't go away. Shep Hyken here with an offer that won't cost you a cent. You may have heard me talk about my annual customer service and experience research. We've surveyed thousands of customers matching the U.S. Census for age, gender, ethnicity, and geography, and we find out what customers love, hate, and want in a customer experience. What's the number one customer experience that almost every customer desires? What makes them come back? What makes them leave? Why won't they fill out surveys? What do they think of AI? Well, these questions and more are answered in the research, which, by the way, is sponsored this year by Ring Central, a leader in global communications. You can download the full report by going to hyken.com and clicking on the research tab at the top. Like I said, it won't cost you a cent, but it may make you or save you thousands and thousands of dollars when you understand your customers' expectations. Again, the website is www.hyken.com.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We're back on Amazing Business Radio talking with Sid Banerjee, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Medallia. I can't wait for our conference in March of this year, 2025, at the beautiful Wynn, Las Vegas. I'm excited. You've got a great keynote speaker, by the way, and not me, by the way.
Well, you too, but yeah.
I could have, but no, you're going to put me at the end of the program. That's fine too. But you got Will Guidara, who is a New York Times bestselling author. He has written an amazing book about the hospitality industry, very, very successful restaurant. And I believe more and more people need to think with a hospitality mentality. So I'm excited to see Will do his thing for your audience.
Yeah, I agree 100%. He's going to be a great speaker, I think, and a lot of inspirational ideas will come out. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yep. And of course, I'll be there too on day 2.
Yes.
I can't wait. All right. So you mentioned something having, and this was, by the way, I believe we first were talking about this just before we went live on the recording, but you said there's 3 things. You can have the data, you can wrangle it up and figure out what it means, and then you activate the data. And activation is, I think, where a lot of companies fall short because they love looking at the insights. And there used to be a definition of big data, and it was overall too much data. You didn't know what to do with it because it was so big. And if you're not careful, you can get so much data about your customers, you don't know what to do first in order to take advantage of it all. So let's start with the having and the wrangling of it, and then we'll talk about the activation.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about those 3 steps, having in most organizations nowadays is about the data lives in a silo somewhere in the enterprise, right? So, data about your customers might be in a CRM, data about your products and product experiences might be in, the digital feedback that comes or from, websites and other things. Data about your customer actual interactions with you when they call you or they chat you or they email you or they review your product or service online is going to be on those different sort of platforms and systems, both inside and outside the company. Yeah, having the data is one thing, but if the data is siloed in these systems that are not easily accessible for real-time and actionable insights, it's going to be very difficult to make sense of it. So you have to build essentially the connectors to bring the data from all the various disparate sources where they live into a CX platform that can actually organize and synthesize that data into actionable insight. So first of all, bring the data together through connectors. Think of that as sort of the nervous system that sort of senses and extracts the signals you need so that you can make decisions. The second piece, once you have that raw data, and it is often quite raw, you need to apply algorithms to make sense of it. So it's an algorithm that might detect web movements and say, this is a customer who's confused because they keep moving the mouse back and forth. Or it could be tones and words that on a call or a chat that suggest that the customer is upset or frustrated, because you can basically infer meaning from language. So you use algorithms to sort of extract the actual meaningful markers from those signals. And then those markers, which are less big than the raw data, become essentially the ingredients for the analysis that then can activate better decisions and improvements to the customer experience. Historically, those signals are applied into traditional analytics. An analytic could be a tracking report, or it could be a dashboard, or it could be a list of customers that require some sort of follow-up. And we do all of those things in that kind of activation stage. But what's interesting in 2025, and I think going forward, is activation can also be an AI engine looking at the data and saying, I see a group of people that need to be followed up on, or I see a trend where this product is always being complained about, or always being returned, or always has a wide number of customer support questions, which suggests that maybe the product is either not well designed or not well documented. And so an AI can then actually infer what you should do to fix the problem and recommend the fix. And so you're starting to move away from activation being insights to recommendations. And then where I think you can expect to see, companies like Medallia going in the very near future is not just insights and recommendations, but actual automations where we take a decision because we now have a high enough confidence what we can do to improve the customer experience if we actually take a decision in an automated way. So AI is starting to kind of first be about collecting the data and inferring meaning. Then it's about collecting the insights and inferring insights. And then it's about taking enough of those insights with confidence and inferring actions or recommendations. And then finally, and this is what you can really look to see in the next year, if not sooner, but certainly next year or more, where we will see CX companies that are actually activating in an automated, intelligent way off of all this data. That's really when things start to completely change the whole game.
Yeah,
And that's really what I think you can look forward to in the very near future.
right. And I'm very excited about the way things are going. If I take a look at my career, which has been a number of decades, in just the last, let's say I've been here almost 4 decades. In the last 4 years, maybe even 4 months, I've seen as much improvement as I had over the first almost 40 years, which is crazy. But that's really what's happening. So it used to be that you required or you hoped that your front line, who is actually interacting with the customer, could give you information about how to create a better experience. And no longer do they have to do that because you have the ability to, for lack of a better term, observe everything that's happening. And you got down in your comment, you mentioned that even somebody on a website who's not even bought from us yet, but we kind of know what's going on. We're watching how their mouse is moving along. We don't know who they are. We just know that we're starting to see, a big percentage of customers get to this point in a process on our website, and we're seeing a lot of mouse movement. They must be confused. Something's going on. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. It's very exciting.
It's where we are today. I mean, that's not blue sky future. That's literally capability that is available. We have available right now. I think that people often talk about AI and think about, is AI going to completely disrupt humanity? That's a much longer discussion for a different time. But what I will tell you is that AI, I think, is kind of operating in stages right now, generally and specifically for CX. The first is AI is helping humans make decisions with higher confidence and with higher or lower latency, right? Because they can actually see things faster than they might on their own with a little bit of an agent kind of on your shoulder helping you out, a little virtual agent. The second is AI will ultimately help you make decisions by recommending things, not just finding things. And then the third is AI will probably start to do the jobs that it has high confidence it can do without a human being. There will still be a need for humans to design experiences, to basically be the human in the loop, to maintain quality and kind of ethical value and other kinds of things. So I don't expect AI to completely disrupt the customer experience from a human to human perspective. But look, the very basic sort of reality is that we are all going to be interacting increasingly with more automated experiences. And companies that can understand those changes and still try to basically tease out insights and actions and be understanding and empathetic to the human side of this, which is the customer, are those companies that are going to survive. And we want to be one of those, solutions that actually can help companies make that transformation happen and do it in a way that is adding value to everybody.
Well, I believe Medallia is absolutely doing that. I remember 10 years ago being at conferences and going to a trade show and going to your booth, and maybe it was 10 years ago, maybe a little less, I don't know, but I would talk to you. What do you guys do? And basically what you've done is you've grown with technology, still doing what you've always done, just it's so much bigger, better, and more robust, which once again gets me excited about the future. You did mention about, there's going to be a disruption of jobs, no doubt about that. There are some types of companies that might be able to get away with not having human-to-human support. I don't think there are many of them. It's
Agreed.
and I've been preaching for years when Barclays Bank put in an ATM and they said that's the end of all the tellers. And that was, decades ago. Yet I walk into banks all over the place. There's always tellers. I believe there will always be a place in many companies for the human-to-human experience. So I don't think we're going to lose that, at least not in any time in the near future. That's for sure.
We violently agree on that, Shep. I agree with you too. Yeah.
Great. All right, wrapping it all up. You know what's coming. I want to know, do you have one last nugget of wisdom do you want to share before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into this new role over the last few weeks, I'm kind of reaffirming to myself that the best way to lead change is to be the change, right? Not to fear it. And we are at a kind of a tipping point right now where customer experience is radically and rapidly changing right now. The best thing we can do to make sure that we still drive customer experience excellence, both as a company, but for all the companies we work with and the customers we work with, is to lean into the change and never lose sight of our mission, which is to drive good customer experiences.
Yep. So you don't just want to adopt, you want to keep up. You don't want to play catch up. You want to be there at the very front. Sid, great insights. Thank you so much. This is why we call it Amazing Business Radio.
Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We will be back next week with another interview. And until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.